What happened when Jesus died? God's reaction. The moment Jesus breathed his last on the cross was unlike any other moment in human history. It wasn't simply the death of a man. It was the climax of God's plan of redemption. A moment so significant that the Bible describes creation itself responding. For hours, an unnatural darkness had covered the land. In the middle of the day, the light disappeared, leaving people confused, afraid, and wondering what was happening. The crowds who had gathered to watch the crucifixion fell strangely quiet. Soldiers stood at their posts, while Jesus' followers watched with broken hearts, believing they were witnessing the end of all their hopes. Then Jesus cried out with a loud voice and willingly gave up his spirit. At that very moment, the earth began to shake. A powerful earthquake rattled the ground beneath everyone's feet. Massive rocks split apart, and fear swept through those standing nearby. The people who had mocked Jesus only moments earlier suddenly realized that something extraordinary was happening. Inside the temple in Jerusalem, another astonishing event took place. The massive curtain separating the holy place from the most holy place was torn in two from top to bottom. This thick curtain symbolized the separation between a holy God and sinful humanity. By tearing it from above, the Bible presents a powerful picture that access to God was being opened through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Even hardened Roman soldiers were shaken by what they had witnessed. The centurion overseeing the crucifixion looked at everything that had happened, the darkness, the earthquake, and the way Jesus died, and declared, "Surely this was the Son of God." The disciples were devastated. They had left everything to follow Jesus, believing he was the promised Messiah. Now their teacher had died on a Roman cross. To them, it seemed as though hope itself had been buried. Yet while the world saw defeat, God was carrying out his greatest victory. Jesus' death was not an accident. According to the scriptures, he willingly gave his life as the perfect sacrifice for the sins of humanity. Every prophecy, every promise, and every part of God's redemptive plan pointed to this moment. His body was carefully taken down from the cross and placed in a borrowed tomb. A massive stone sealed the entrance, and Roman guards were stationed outside to ensure no one could enter or leave. To everyone watching, the story appeared to be over. But heaven was not defeated. The silence of the tomb lasted only 3 days. On the third morning, everything changed forever. The earth shook once again. The stone was rolled away, not because Jesus needed a way out, but so that the world could see the tomb was already empty. Death had been defeated. The grave could not hold him. Jesus had risen just as he had promised. The resurrection transformed fear into faith, despair into hope, and mourning into celebration. The disciples who had once hidden in fear became bold witnesses, proclaiming that Jesus was alive. From that day forward, the cross was no longer seen only as an instrument of execution. It became a symbol of God's love, mercy, forgiveness, and victory over sin and death. The events surrounding Jesus' death remind us that God's greatest work often happens when everything appears lost. What looked like humanity's darkest day became the beginning of its greatest hope.